Good. Okay. We're getting there. Good evening. Please let me know if you're here and you can see me. Trying to work on this one. Good evening if you're here. Okay. We are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. How are you doing? Please say hi if you're here. Hello. Hi. Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good. Perfect. How is everyone doing? How y'all doing? Okay. Everything is connected. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to tonight's live session. If you're here, please type your name and where you're joining us from. Good evening. Please let us know where you're joining us from. Hi. Hi, Meg. Good evening. How are you doing? Hi, Funke. Good evening. How are you? Hello, Jalivia. Good evening. How are you doing? Hi, Ruth. Good evening. How are you doing? Welcome, everyone. Welcome. If you're here, please type your name and what state or town you're joining us from. State and town, town and state. Whatever makes sense to you. Miami, Florida. Hi, big man. Oh, Jerry. Okay, hi, Jerry. Good evening. How you doing? It's nice to connect. Nice to be here. Who else is here? Please type your name so I can say hi to you. And I'm going to go ahead and start to share what we have going on tonight. Good evening, everyone. All right, let's do this. Okay, perfect. This looks good. I hope you are doing great. Apparently, Meg, there might be a few people on face on YouTube. So I see that we don't frequently go there, but see if you can also be on YouTube one way or another. If that's not possible, we'll take care of that after the live. I hope you're doing well. Good evening. Meg is from Seattle, Washington. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. Hi, Fortune. Good evening. How are you doing? It's nice to have you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's start to talk tonight about a clear pathway to real estate investing. Continue to introduce yourselves, please. My name is Yinka Olumorin. As many of you maybe already know, but if you're new here, my name is Yinka Olumorin, and I'm a coach on this platform, Acquire Real Estate. And it's a platform That includes individuals who are investing in real estate. So, doing things like owning properties either as fix and flips or as rentals for long term passive income, and just really just building that generational legacy, generational wealth, and also freeing. The whole goal is to have that time freedom and to create our own pathway out of the typical golden handcuff, right? If you know what that means. Because sometimes we feel enslaved by a system that keeps us stuck in a particular pattern that's that could be better. So yes, real estate investing gives us that pathway to do things differently, to see life differently, and to be able to make a lot of our dreams come true. And so, yeah, if you have money working for you in your sleep, it's a great thing. That way, you don't have to trade your time for money eventually if you don't want to. So, yes, that's why real estate investing is a big deal. So, if you're looking to do things like wholesaling, lease options, fix and flips, rentals, whether short term rentals, long term rentals, maybe even multifamily, maybe even new constructions, you're at the right place. And that's what we do here. Okay, I also invest with Dario Olomoro, who is the other coach on this platform, a licensed builder, and he's our go-to for anything construction related. I'm happy to be here. Please continue to introduce yourselves in the comments. Hi Yinka, good evening and welcome. Okay, so tonight we're going to look at I'm just going to go back to the other screen and see the other folks. Okay, tonight we're going to look at where you are right now and what you can do in real estate investing with what you have. I get asked that a lot. A lot of times people are asking, do I have enough? Do I have the money? Do I have enough money to get started? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Right? It's usually money wise. Sometimes credit, people are asking if they have enough credit to get started. A lot of times people doubt that they have enough money. Let me know if you're in that boat. If you're in that category, type I in the comments. Let's see if this is really a relevant topic for most people. Who's thinking about money here? Type I in the comments. Type. Let's know if this is something that you're thinking about. Is this relevant to you? Do you sometimes doubt that you have enough money? Type I in the comments if that's definitely a question that you have. Let's see how many people are thinking about whether they have enough money, whether they have enough funds to get started buying properties. Nobody. Somebody. Let's see. There has to be someone, right? I'm sure that's why you're here. Or maybe sometimes the your um feedback gets delayed too. So I'm not going to let that hold us back, but continue to type in the comments if you are typing, okay? So, yes, the money is a big deal. Yeah, I see those coming in now. The money is a big deal for most people, right? Money, money, money. So, do you really have enough money? And we're going to break it down. Okay, so I see those eyes. Okay, we're going to just go straight into it and we're going to break it down by money, right? Money, and then we can talk about other things subsequently. Okay. I see a couple of you guys saying I. So this is a very relevant topic. And I know it's relevant because I get asked that a lot. A lot of times, a lot of times, too many times than we should be getting, right? So let's go right into it. All right, so here's what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to make sure that everything is clear to you. I hope you can see the entire screen. By the way, to my left, right, left, yes, left, I have what you have, And then the next column has real estate strategy, and then your exit strategy, and then your estimated profit margin. Okay. So you can have a broad picture of what you can do with what you have. Okay. So let's talk about one thing you can do at less than $1,000. Let's say you only had $1,000. Because my screen is cut off, unfortunately, you can't see the less. Let me see if something else makes sense here. Okay, this is better. This is better. I'm just gonna wait for that to translate to your screen. Cool. So we have less than $1,000 is what you have right here. So if you have less than $1,000, what can you do with that in real estate investing? We're just not going to go into all kinds of strategies. Just going to give you an idea that you can work with, a viable idea to work with. Okay. I'm sure you probably even have other ideas, but let's see what you can do with less than $1,000. Okay, cool. Thank you for confirming, Meg. So let's talk about wholesaling. Okay, guys, you can wholesale. Wholesale means you're putting a property under contract. You're saying, I'm going to buy this property. You put it under contract, which means you have an agreement with a seller to sell. But because you don't have the funds to buy, you go ahead and assign that property to another investor who can buy. The investor cuts you a check for the work that you've done. So you don't end up owning the property, but this is a real estate activity. You end up assigning that property. You're out of the deal. You don't have to do the work. You don't have to do repairs. You're not on the hook for anything really. Okay. So you're out with your assignment fee. When we say exit strategy, what we mean by exit strategy is what happens in the end. If you're getting a property, what are you doing with it? How are you rounding up this deal? If you're saying you're doing deals upon deals. How exactly are you rounding up your deal? What are you doing in the end? Right? What are you getting from the deal? So, what are you doing to get your profits? So, an estimated profit margin is usually around 5,000 to 15,000 per deal. Usually wholesalers are around that area. Plus, right? So 15,000 plus 5,000 to 15,000 plus per deal. It's usually what you see. Have there been things like 100K on an assignment fee? Yes, there has been. There are people who can pull that off, the 100K assignment fee, maybe on a bigger price point property, um, where they were able to go in and really negotiate that deal. So the negotiation is a valuable, highly valuable skill in this case, and that will help you make a lot of money. So even though you have less than $1,000, you wanted to do this, you're learning something on how to negotiate. You're learning the whole process. Even if you're not good at negotiating in the beginning, you're building that skill as you go. You're practicing, you're doing better. So wholesaling is definitely a viable option if you were saying that you had nothing to your name and you only had less than 1,000. Okay. I'm going to talk about if you were somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000. Okay, so let's say all you had was $1,000 to $5,000. Definitely can do Airbnb arbitrage. And what you get from what is Airbnb arbitrage? It means you go to a landlord, someone who's listing their property for rent. Go to can mean just communicating with them, right? Either via text message or via Zillow or any of the online platforms. And you're asking if you can sublease their property for short term rentals, right? And definitely the whole goal here is for you to cash flow. You want to get rental income. And usually that rental income is around $500 to $1,500 per month plus per month, depending on the area, depending on how good the area is with Airbnb, if there's that demand, and if there's not that many competition. And so definitely doing that research before going into that area, so you're able to actually cash flow. Even though you don't own that property, you're getting monthly income from that property. Okay. And you only had to come up with this amount. Now, could it be more than 5,000 being invested? Yes, it could be, depending on how much security deposits you have to pay, depending on how much furnitures you have to come up with. So if you decided to get maybe brand new high-end furnitures, then that wouldn't cut it. But if you decided to get furnitures that may be slightly used, or maybe from Facebook Marketplace, or things that are in decent condition that are also good quality that you can use for that, but it's really low price, you could pull that off. Okay. So if you're like around 5,000, definitely this is a viable option for you to go with. Okay. All right. Next, just say you had between 5,000 to 15,000. What would you do with between 5,000 to 15,000? What ideas do you guys have? What might that work for? Let's see what you guys think. What do you think? If you had like 5,000 to 15,000, let's see who's gonna match what I have. Usually you guys match what I have on slide, which is really good. So what do you think you could do with 5,000, between 5,000 and 15,000? Okay, so Jalivia says Burr. I like that idea. I like it. Cool. Any other ideas? So you had 5,000 to 15,000. That could be your money. And if you have a better understanding, then you know it doesn't have to be your money. It could be money sitting in your credit card, right? So what would you do with 5,000, between 5,000 and 15,000? You can do a flip, right? And as you said, where you can do a single family fix and flip. You could do a flip refi rent, like she said. You could actually do either a flip or rent for single family, right? And what do you get? Yes, fix and flip. Yes. What do you get for doing that? You get usually your flip profits. And we always say in coaching that if you're below $40,000 in profits, don't do the deal. So you want to be at least $40,000 and up in profits. Okay. So yes, definitely a profit margin between $30,000 to $70,000 plus is highly realistic when it comes to flip. Making sure your numbers are good and you're following due process. Okay. So absolutely, you can definitely turn this into this. And this is regardless of your money, right? This is minus what you put in. So this is in addition to what you put in. So you get your money back and you also make that range of amounts, right? So as you look at your money and what you have in your accounts, you can kind of figure out where you fall. Okay. And it's not even just all about money, but I'll talk about that later. So you can kind of figure out where you're at, and you can kind of also appreciate how many options you have in real estate investing. The only thing is, if you don't put in the work, then nothing is going to happen, right? So you have to put in the work. You have to do it. Just got to do it. Just got to stop the doubts from coming in and do. Well, the doubts will come, but just stop it from kind of getting to you too much and stopping you from taking action. So you have to do it to see it happen, right? Okay, but these are options, definitely. We're still talking about between 5 to 15,000. And yes, we did talk about the rental as well. So the other thing with the rental, in this case, Burr, is asides maybe making a cash out of $30,000 plus, Sometimes less cash outs. It really depends, right? But you could definitely be at 30,000 plus. As okay, so let me I'm still gonna talk about cash outs eventually. But on a single family rental, you can definitely be at not just the cash out profits, which is also tax deductible. You could also be at between 300 to 1500 per month. Okay, so between 300 to 1500 per month on cash flow. Okay. With the high interest rates right now, sometimes you're able to you kind of see less than you're anticipating, but we're still falling within this range depending on how you financed the property. So you're going to see somewhere between $300 and $1,500 monthly in cash flow with single family rental. If you fixed and rented, if you only bought and rented, maybe you're just only going to end up with, somewhere around 300 plus in cash flow, especially with the high interest rates. But if you did a fix and rent, you're definitely positioning yourself to be able to cash out all of the equity, the sweat equity that you put into the property. So that's why fixing to rent is magical. Okay. So how about, let's say, between 15,000 to 30,000? If you were between 15,000 to 30,000, what would that look like? What could you do, guys, with between 15,000 to 30,000, aside what we've mentioned so far? What do you guys think? So if you had between 15,000 to 30,000, where what do you think you can do with that money, guys? Is that enough money to do anything else? Let's see what you guys think. Okay. Just keep typing. Again, there's that delay between what you're typing and what I'm seeing. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about this while I see what you guys have on Ravel. Okay, so here you can definitely house hack. And why house hack? House hack is might be a little bit more expensive because you're buying the property in ready to move in condition, especially if it's an FHA loan where there's specific ways the property needs to look before you buy it. So you're not really buying those kind of properties with equity. Ruth says yes. Okay. You're not really buying properties like this with equity because you're ready to move in. You want it to be in finished condition, in ready to move in condition. So you're living in that property to rent it. And you're trying to build passive income by doing that. Okay. So let's say with the house hacking, it definitely has to be more than one unit, just so you can live in one unit and rent out the other unit. So maybe the other units can be giving you maybe around $400 in cash flow after paying the entire mortgage, maybe even up to $1,000 in cash flow. And sometimes with the house hacking, you don't really have cash flow. It just helps to subsidize your own house payments. So rather than paying maybe 2,000 in mortgage, you ended up paying like 500 every month because your house hacking and somebody else lives in the other units, and you're able to pay the mortgage. And with that rent they're paying, and you're also able to add just maybe 500 out of pocket. So sometimes you're not really cash flowing, but typically you could see things like somewhere around 400 to $1,000 in cash flow. It's helpful, but it's not quite there. It's quite limiting if you're only depending on this strategy. You're not going to be able to move far in real estate investing if you have to live in every property that you're investing in. Because some realtors will tell you that you have to live in it. That's not true. To be able to invest, that they tell you, well, that's the best strategy, right? That strategy is just because you have to come up with less money using FHA. So best strategy, get FHA 3.5%, bring low down payments, get another second FHA loan. It might not be as low as 3.5, but still good. And then you move again. How long do you want to keep moving for? So you don't have to be unstable because you're a real estate investor. This is an option, but it's still not like the best return on investment option. It is good if you find that opportunity, but you don't have to solely depend on that opportunity. Okay. So house hacking is an option. If you have somewhere between 15,000, 30,000 as down payments, closing costs, you could pull that off and you can go ahead and house hack if it makes sense for your family situation. Okay. Okay, so now we go to another level, say around 25,000. You have somewhere between 25,000 to 50,000 and you wanted to do something in real estate investing. What could you possibly do? I mean, of course you can do all of this, right? So the higher you go, the more options you have open to you. So someone around here can do all of this, someone around here can do all of this, and so on. But let's say you're around, and I dare say someone around here can do all of this, right? But if you're just looking at what you have and you just can't bring your mind to understand and to accept the fact that you don't need your own money, then this skill will be very helpful for you to have a clue and kind of start to plan on what you're going to do. Okay, so let's say you're around 25,000 to 50,000. That's what you have. You can definitely start to consider maybe multifamily rentals, maybe 4 units, or two duplexes, triplexes, fourplex, you know, yeah, fourplexes. That's the correct term. Quadruplexes. You can go higher from there, right? Depending on where you're getting this from, because the prices vary for duplexes or triplexes in different states, depending on the town, depending on the area. And people still wonder if you can still get 100K properties. And I'm wondering how you cannot find a 100K property in the United States, especially if you're open to investing out of states, right? Sometimes I see that in my comments, like, what do you mean 100K? Yes, 100K is very realistic. 50K is extremely realistic. That we don't even want it because, well, not like we don't want the property, but most times lenders don't want to lend that low. They want higher price point. They want to lend. They have a minimum lending requirement, right? So if an investor avoids a 50K properties because they want to be able to fund that property and not have to use their money to buy it, so it's cheap. It's too cheap, basically, right? To go for. So finding cheap properties in the United States is not the biggest issue. Okay, it's really structuring everything and understanding how funding works. That's the most important thing here. That will lead to success. So with multifamily rental, you are fixing and renting. If you want to buy cash that's already at ready moving condition, then you may need to come up with even more than this, depending on the price point of the multifamily. And you don't want to say because you want to match where you're at, you go buy a property that's in a bad area with high crime rates and bad neighbors and all of that situationship. So you have to be careful and make sure you're researching, knowing those markets. Okay. So with this strategy, you're looking at an estimated profit margin around 70,000 plus, right? If you were doing the fixed components. Okay, so that will be a cash out of 70,000 plus and about 1,000 plus monthly in cash flow. So definitely more than that, depending on how you worked your numbers in the beginning of the deal and if you did the right thing, right? So you're able to make that amount with what you're putting in. So again, this is so you make this amount after you replace your money, right? So this is regardless of what you've put in. Because when we're putting in our deal analyzers, we're putting numbers into our deal analyzer. We're making sure that our profits does not include our investment. The investment gets paid back and then you have additional amounts. So keep that in mind for all the profits estimated profits that you're seeing in the numbers here, right? And remembering that they depend on what you did in the beginning to secure the property. And in the beginning, you can tell where you fall, what range you're in. So you're not going to a deal without knowing or hoping that things will fall in place. You're going in already having a strategy for things to be in a specific range and having backup exit strategies as well. Okay. So that's what you're doing. It's, if you have this amount, maybe just go right into multifamily if it makes sense. If you feel like that gives, if you feel like doing multi single family gives you a better return on your investment, then do so. And yes, that happens a lot of times where a single family gives you a high return, higher, way higher return on investment than a multifamily, depending on the numbers. Always depends on the numbers. So at that point, you choose to do all of that. So remember again, if you're somewhere around this profit margin, you're able to do all of this, okay? And that one as well. Now we look at 50K plus. Let's say you're somewhere around $50,000 plus. What can you do with $50,000? You can definitely go into apartment syndications. And basically, with apartment syndications, you're going to multi-million dollar apartment complexes, or at least around $1 million plus, depending on the area again. But it's usually a lot of units of apartment buildings. And you're sharing the equity with other investors. With this, you need to be able to negotiate deals, right? Talk about deals. You need to be able to present the deal. You need to be able to understand, definitely understand how this whole thing works, and be able to explain to your investors what's going on, right? So with that knowledge, I dare say you probably don't even need 50,000. So guess what? Even with apartment syndications, if you know what you're doing, you possibly wouldn't even need anything. So the other investors bring the money and you bring the deal. And then you guys share the equity as an exit, and that means that you all co-own the building. Usually per door, what we see is around $50 to $100 per month per door, right? In cash flow. That's per unit in cash flow. But then the big ROI, or return on investment, usually is a long-term situation. So you might not see like big cash flow right now that's going to save you from a 9 to 5, but down the line you're talking big equity, because um with time the property rents increase. You got to increase the rents to match the market rents, and the higher the rents, the higher the value of the property. So the way that multi apartments are evaluated is based on their capacity to produce income. So the higher income they're producing, then the higher the value of that building would be. If you go in there and did some work, it's definitely going to boost the value, because then you can increase the rents. If you updated each unit, you're going to be able to really boost that. And so sometimes you have a value add opportunity in apartment syndications, but you have to really structure that deal right and correctly so you're not losing money. So definitely, maybe if you had 50K seating, it kind of gives you a boost or some confidence to go into that. But I dare say that even if you didn't have that, you had your confidence, you can do it if it makes sense for you as far as the return on investment is concerned. Okay. All right. So now another thing to talk about is really like sweat equity stuff. You don't have, you're not talking money, you're talking hustle. Okay. Your hustle can definitely replace all of this, and your hustle is definitely is definitely worth more than all of this. Okay, so let's say you're driving for dollars, you're finding deals. Let's say you're cold calling and you have a list of motivated sellers of properties and you're cold calling them. You have the time basically to do all of this. Let's say you didn't have a job going on right now, you have a lot of time. Let's say you can dedicate 10 hours a week into your real estate investing business. You can choose to do sweat equity stuff. You can choose to get these properties and structure them nicely. If you're wholesaling the deal, definitely you can do definitely more than 5,000, like we said right here, right? Per deal. But you can even go ahead and flip these properties by yourself. You can go ahead and rent this property per door. You can own properties even at this level. That's what we teach. Even at this level, you can own properties, except you're so timid and don't want to do anything. But you can. And if you're shy, it doesn't help you. If you got to do what you got to do to succeed, right? If you need to present a deal, present it. You're not going to die. Present a deal, get people involved, and make it a win win situation for everybody. Because at the end of the day, your knowledge is the most important thing, not the money. Your knowledge, your ability to structure deals and make deals happen. But if you're sitting on the fence and you've not done a deal because you feel like you don't have money, you're not willing to try other ways to make properties happen for you. And trust me, the fact that you don't have this doesn't mean that you don't own the properties. You're going to own the properties legitimately because you brought the deal. You're going to own. Because without the deal, these folks will not make money. Without the deal, your friend would not make money. The partnership would not exist without the deal. So you're actually the biggest owner of that deal because the deal is the most important thing. You chose to share, right? And if you didn't want to share, you could have maybe gone to fund it elsewhere, something. So you have to understand how much value your time brings to the table, how much value your knowledge brings to the table, and how much value your deal brings to the table. So you definitely have a lot of room to make all kinds of income here if you choose to do that. So, what do you really have? Okay, right now, if you're thinking, what do you really have? Because you got to think about it. Okay, do you have liquid cash? And you're wondering, like we said, what to do? Where am I at? Do I have enough? Do you have, maybe you have a good credit score and you have available funding, or you can get funding. Maybe you're at 700 plus and you have maybe personal credit cards, maybe you have business credit cards, maybe you have personal lines of credits or business lines of credit, or you can have access to that. Or maybe you've been invited a couple of times and maybe pre-approved and you wanted to go ahead and see if you can get that final approval. There are a lot of ways. And I know with Experian.com right now, if the Experian.com will kind of tell you, give you an idea of what kind of credit cards you can qualify for. On the business side of things, nav.com will tell you what kind of credit cards you can potentially qualify for. So if you're not trying to get any funding and you're just sitting, then you're wasting all the credits you have. So your available credits is a big deal. The fact that you're able to maintain a good credit score over time is a huge asset in this part of the world. It's used to leverage, and leverage means using something you have to get something you don't have. So it's a huge leverage that you have to use, or it's wasting. Okay. Then the other thing is your time. Do you have the time? Do you have the hustle ability? Can you hustle? I hustled. When I started in real estate investing, I did hustle. So I might not look like someone that hustled right now, and that's the whole point, right? Because when you hustle, nobody's gonna write hustle on your head. I know sometimes I'm kind of funny the way that I say things, but it's true. No one's gonna. You're shy because of people that care less what you do with your life. So if you need to put in that hustle, then put that hustle in to yield good returns for you. Okay, so you got to think about yourself. What's your schedule like? Can you try a couple of things, right? I know yesterday, I think, was when we had a coaching call with my coaching students, and one of my students was saying how she's now a full-time real estate investor. Just closed on a deal last week, Friday, and working on two other ones she's closing on hopefully soon. Still putting in those offers being accepted, right? And she's not going back to work, right? She's not going back because she sees this as something that's important for her to do. Putting in the work, putting in the hustle. Um, so you don't have to wait to get fired to and kind of think about how, because sometimes that pushes us to think, and I understand, but just think about how you can do something better for yourself with the time that you have right now. Do you have some time to hustle? Genuinely, if you have that time, then there's no reason why not. So you don't wait for, and you just don't know if you would have the time again ever. So it's always a good time if you think you have if you have an hour to squeeze on a daily basis, right? That's good. Do you have real estate experience? Maybe you've done one property successfully. Do you know how many people are trying to get their first deal done? You have no idea. So if you're here, you've done one property successfully. Yes, maybe you didn't hit your ideal profit margin, but hey, you're a big deal. You have experience. You can use that experience to get additional things done, to get additional properties done, right? You can use that experience. So your experience is a big asset. How about trusted relationships? And I get that sometimes you're not sure what kind of relationships you have with people, but I'm going to tell you that when you have intelligent projects going on, projects that make sense for everyone, that will help other people benefit, you're going to start to be surrounded by the right people. When you start to present your project, you're going to start to meet the right people. You're going to start to be in the right cycle or circles, right? So, right now, you might feel like no one around me is doing it. No one around me knows I'm a novice. I have no clue how to present anything. Then you're going to learn how to present, and you're going to naturally gravitate towards the right cycle or circles. So do you currently have trusted relationships you can leverage on? If not, can you work on that? Because having access to networks actually puts you in the right place. The things that you're not able to accomplish on your own, you can accomplish with trusted relationships and access to networks. Okay. Right. The other thing is your skill sets. So maybe you've worked a job right now that's is good for good experience for things that we do in real estate investing. So things like sales, for instance. Well, we're not selling. I mean, I think mostly realtors sell, but with sales, you kind of learn the art of negotiation, right? So want to negotiate a property price to be lower, right? So in negotiation now, you're learning that I need to give something that will be valuable to who I am negotiating with, right? But without that knowledge, you have no clue. You're just asking for what you want. No one really cares what you want, except you can give them what they want for the most part, right? They're not indebted to you in any way. So with negotiation, you're learning how to give people what they want so you can get what you want, right? So your sales skill set, maybe even projects management. I have some coaching students who have a 9 to 5 on project management, and now is paying off big time because they're able to properly manage a project, right? So maybe you have project management skills and a lot of other skills that you never, maybe you're even detail oriented. Maybe you love Excel or worksheets. It might be a very little skill, and you bring that to the table and you use that nicely, right? To make yourself money. Yeah, as good as, you know, something as little as just knowing how to use the computer well, knowing how to use Excel, or just good with PDFs, or whatever it is, can be a big deal, can help you present to people and help you share value, right? So think about your skill sets and how that can be an edge for you in the real estate investing world. So you have all of this. So you never say, I don't have anything. You have all of this. Some of you have the liquid cash. Some of you have everything else outside of this. Even if it's just one thing you have here, it goes a long way. in giving you the best in life, particularly in real estate investing. Okay, so we're going to talk about the resource for the night. If you have a question, you can drop that down. I usually it's pretty straightforward, but if you have a question, drop that in the comments. The resource for tonight is going to be a clear pathway guide. So the guide will basically meet you where you are and show you like 3 to 5 next steps to move forward confidently in real estate investing. So whether you're starting with $500 or $50,000, or maybe you just have sweat equity, it's a very nice guide for you. So type resource in the comments if you want that guide tonight. And I'm looking to see if there are any questions. So type resource in the comments if you want a clear pathway guide, and that we will have that sent over to you. So type resource in the comments for that before we round up the meeting. And I really want Meg to be able to see that, so I don't want to rush this part of everything because the comments come in slowly. So please type resource in the comments so Meg can see that and send that over to you. And also, if you wanted to get started with coaching, definitely type coaching in the comments. If you want to get started with your journey, you want to get started with whether flips, whether rentals, whether multifamilies, Airbnbs, whatever it is you want to do in real estate investing, we can have a chat and we can look at where you're at right now, what you're doing, and we can talk about what you need to do and what you need moving forward, or if you already have everything going for you. So type coaching in the comments if you wanted to get started with your journey. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say right now, or any announcements aside just knowing that Meg has what you guys need, resource coaching, and I think we're good for the night. Please say good night to everyone here. Say good night, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a greatness. So Meg says, please check your DMs, and that's true because sometimes she sends messages and they go into spam, and you have no clue she sent something over. So please check your DMs and also your spam box to make sure that you're not missing anything from her. So yes, so just say good night in the comments. Good night, everyone. Good night, Olivia. Good night, guys. Have a great one, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.